I'm a Utah Jazz fan, and today was meant to be a good day. It was draft lottery day, and that means that one team gets the number one pick, and several others are below them, but they don't matter. The team wants the number one pick, especially in this year's draft. Cooper Flag. Everyone knows it's going to be Cooper Flag, whether the team trades it or not. Whatever. It's Cooper Flag. And I woke up thinking, hey, my Utah Jazz have a phenomenal chance at getting Cooper Flag. 14% chance of getting him, by the way. To be specific, that was the same as the Washington Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets, but we were still number one. We were the most likely to get him. So I was like, this is going to be a cool day just to see what the future holds for this team. So it was interesting because people, it's funny online actually. I'm going to quickly dive into this. It's funny because people over the years, the draft lottery produced some weird results. Sometimes you might have 14% chance and the team with 5% chance that the number one pick gets it. The lottery balls drop in their favor and that team wins it. So people are like, hey, the NBA is rigged. Simple as that. They just straight away go to that angle, that narrative. And look, I don't know. There is some weird stuff that happens, but I'm sure everything is, under the rule books and under the guides, but it is fascinating how this stuff works. So to quickly summarize it up, Utah, my team, 14% chance. Charlotte, Washington, also 14% chance at landing the number one pick. So in my mind, I was like, okay, this is cool. This is actually great because Utah have a fair dinkum shot at landing Cooper Flag, or second case scenario, you get the second pick, third pick. In my mind, I was expecting a top two. It just felt like it was the right thing. It just felt like it was going to happen. I can't explain it any more than that. But then the draft gods, the basketball gods, as people say, they went on Utah's side. Just simple as that. It was funny. I was watching this on a flight, actually. I was just watching it. Wi-Fi, great. I got a chance to watch it live. And every time the commissioner sort of opened up the leaflet with a NBA logo, I'm like, it's Utah. I don't know, just something in your mind. Maybe that happens to normal fans, whatever. But the time the top five came up, I was like, okay, this is what everyone has been waiting for. Number 5 rolls up, and that's Utah. Somehow we get the 14% chance of the number one pick, and we land the 5th instead. It's just funny and sort of really annoying. And all these Jazz fans that I follow were kind of just like hating it. They were just like, this team is cursed, whatever. They were riding it hard. I am not exactly that type of fan. But I was more like, hey, this is actually a really cool opportunity to shape our franchise. Get that franchise player. Get the guy, quote unquote, the guy that's at the top of the board. Every year, most years there's one. Sometimes it's just like a evil level playing field. But that was not the case this year. That was Cooper Flag. And guess who got it? The Dallas Mavericks. That is just a crazy story because, as I said, we had the 14% chance of getting them. Guess what Dallas's chance was at getting the number one pick? 1.8%. Isn't that wild? It's just crazy, and especially for that franchise who's had like some... Everyone knows what's happened in their past few months. One, Nico Harrison, their GM, trades away perhaps the most untradeable player in the league. One of them for sure. Trades away Luka to LA, seemingly out of nowhere. He cops a lot of backlash, which is fair. Obviously, it's fair because literally nobody expected it. It's still wild to me that it happened, but it happened. And that team was being like, it was weird. They obviously got Anthony Davis, great player when healthy, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson. They've got these pieces. They've got these veteran pieces. And the fact that they somehow mustered their way to get Cooper Flag, the number one pick, whether they're going to trade it or not, I don't think they will. Like Cooper Flag, everyone's expecting him to be a Dallas Maverick. I can fully see Cooper Flag's just going to roll into the league and he's just going to make the playoffs. With the team they've got, the veterans they've got, I can see him making an impact in the playoffs. Anyway, this episode is not about Cooper Flag. It is about Utah Jazz. Because, like I said before, I had my mindset that I was going to be a top 2 pick. I'm like, this is cool. But the fact is that we have the 5th pick. And that's still cool. That's still exciting. But it's more like, where do we go from now? Because we've got a bunch of players, we've got a bunch of young players and then players like John Collins and Larry Markkinen. This is a full Utah Jazz podcast, by the way. So actually, and more like a draft podcast as well. Sort of just like the players that are going to be around the 5th spot, who I think is in line and who I've seen people say will be in line for the top 5 for the 5th pick. Sorry, but it's quite fascinating because some of these guys I've watched a fair bit of, some of them I have not, and that almost makes it more intriguing. But the fact of the matter is, we won't get a franchise player. We probably won't. People view that as the top 3 sort of guys in typical drafts. And of course, there's the outliers. There's the Nikola Jokic's of the world. There's the Isaiah Thomas. He wasn't exactly a franchise player for Boston and whatnot, but he made a hell of an impact. So you might get guys like that, but you're probably not going to get a franchise player. So now it's like, what next for Utah? What do we do? We're just going to stay at mediocre for a bit longer. Or the guy we drafted 5 turns out to be an absolute stud and we're laughing. We're like, hey, that was a great thing for us to miss out on Cooper Flagg. I've got some guys I want to talk through who I think will 100% be in the running. The first guy might not be in the top, like he might go top 3, top 4 before he gets to Utah in top 5. But it's kind of exciting to be like, hey, who can we actually get our hands on? And what do these guys even look like? And can they become stars? I think that's the biggest thing for me. Can they actually become stars? So it's exciting to think about. So I'm scratching off 3 names of the list because these guys are not lasting to the 5th spot. Cooper Flagg, obviously I've spoken about him. He's gone. Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey from the same team, the Rutgers. This was the other painful thing. I watched a lot of Rutgers because of these two. I was like, these freshmen, especially Dylan Harper, I just really liked his game and people are comparing him to Cade Cunningham and stuff, and that's one of my favorite players. So I'm like, if we miss out on Cooper Flagg, maybe we can get our hands on Dylan Harper. Cade Cunningham 2.0. I was like, this is awesome. Ace Bailey. There was times during that season I was like, do I like Ace Bailey more as a prospect? Because for those that don't know Ace Bailey, just like a sort of like a modern day NBA scorer, like thin frame, but not afraid to shoot any shot that sort of comes his way, and in a good way. Like, yes, there was some quote unquote bad shots probably taken, and he's probably going to have to adjust that, especially in the NBA level, the professional environment where winning is obviously what they want to make an impact of. That's the most important thing, but a super skilled guy. He's probably seen as a project, as in he would take a while, a few years to work himself out and actually make an impact, but such an awesome talent. And some of the plays he was making in college just gets you excited for the future, but I should stop talking about him because Utah are not getting him. So I'm ruling those 3 out. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm using the Ringers draft guide as a sort of like a guide for this because, one, that thing looks awesome. Every single year they release their draft guide, I'm like, why does that website look so good? Awesome. Also, I kind of trust the people that work for them and like their intel. You can tell they do their research and they do it really well. So just off the top, I'm using that as sort of like a guide for some of the guys I don't know. I'm going to stop talking about that. Let's get stuck into it. Number 1, VJ Edgecombe. He is from Baylor. He is seen as the top 5 guy, so I don't expect him to be at Utah's spot for the picking. But never say never. Maybe he'll be there. But I've seen a bit of this guy. I think sort of like Victor Oladipo type athlete, defender, hustle kind of guy who can expand his game. And people always rave about this dude's like competitive spirit and defensive sort of dog in him, as people love to use that term, but that's how they're describing this guy. So he obviously sounds like a really likable guy. Like if you combine competitive spirit and defense, to me, I'm sold. I'm halfway sold for a prospect if you've got that into you. Add on top of that like an explosive athlete and sort of like an unreal body control in air. That was one of the things that people were talking about a lot, like how he contorts himself and balances himself in air was obviously a talking point. So he seems great, but I don't think Utah are going to have a shot at him. But my impression, he's an athletic defender that will basically... how far he goes will probably be determined by his jump shot. That's my impression of him. He's not shy, by the way. You watch any of those games, like whether it's Baylor or the Nike Hoop Summits and those things, one thing you will notice, that confidence is not a thing for him, a worry for him, I should say. He's happy to shoot him. He shot 34% on 4 attempts at Baylor, so he gets him up there, and the percentage isn't awful compared to some of the other guys on the list. Next one, Con Knipple. Really like this dude. So I when you're at Duke, and when there's a guy like Cooper Flagg playing on the Duke team, you are going to watch other freshmen. Con Knipple is a perfect example of this because Cooper Flagg gets the limelight and the spotlight. You're going to see other people like Con. And I'll say it again. I don't know if this is out of line, but Con reminds me of Devin Booker. Just the way. Now, I know that sounds funny because it's like Devin Booker is like a legit pro scorer, star of the competition. No doubt about that. But Knipple just, the way they play, and that is the big thing, the play style, they remind me of each other. The way he's patient, he gets to his spots, he kind of just rises up. He's got a beautiful like shooting form. People are saying he's probably like the best 3-point shooter in the class. He gives me Devin Booker. He gives me Bogdanovic vibes as well. Just a really sturdy offensive player. And I tell you, you don't see many people talk about him as like a defender or playmaker. But I swear there was games and there was moments during the NCAA tournament, during the season as a whole. You looked at every single Duke defender and you were like, is every single one of these a quality defender? And that's Knipple falls into that play as well. And that's what I really like about him. He seems just like a really smart, intelligent basketball player. So if you draft someone like that who's quote unquote the best 3-point shooter in the draft, like that's pretty damn good. I don't know if he can become a star. I don't. He's shooting 40% on 5 3-point attempts per game, by the way. So I really like him. And he seems like a no-fuss sort of like not relatable, like reliable character. Like no character issues, which I think has to be taken into account, obviously, when you draft someone. So my impression is I don't know if he can become like an absolute star, but I do think he's someone that can contribute right away. And I really like his game. His intelligence and scoring prowess is not something that I think maybe anyone else has in this class. I'm not a draft expert by any means, but I'm happy to put that out there. I'm happy to say that stuff because that's the vibe I got from him. Just a really smooth scorer. I may be touching on him later when I run through some of my favorites who I think will draft and who can become a star. That's how I'm going to finish this thing out. Sticking with the Duke guys, Carmen Malowacz. Now, I've lost my train of thought. I'm back. When you think of like defensive minded centers and guys that will basically become like a defensive anchor, that's what I think of Malowacz. And I think that's what he will be straight away in a way. Maybe he'll have some rough issues, like rough times in his first year or so, but I think that's what ultimately he will become. I don't know what he can do on offense. I don't. He averages 8.6 points per game at Duke. And I think majority of those would have been off dunks, lobs, pick and rolls. Maybe like the live games I watched, he attempted a few like hook shots and even like jump shots, but I don't know what this guy can do. By the way, this guy's 7'2". He's very, very long. And people sort of laugh at how long he looks on court because of the way his like arms dangle and like run, like move as he's running up and down the floor. But he just covers a lot of space. So when I'm thinking of this, my impression of this is basically, I told you I'm a Jazz fan. This is why I'm doing this. But do we need another Rudy Gobert? Or do we want another Rudy Gobert in this draft? That's what it reminds me of. Is that fair? People who know Carmen Malowacz more than me, feel free to tell me that that's not fair. But that's my impression of him. Sort of like that Rudy Gobert type, long, going to become an awesome defender, but I'm not sure what he can do on offense. But that's not to say it's a bad thing. I just don't know what he can become on offense, like I said. And I don't know if Utah want that for this draft. We'll see. I'm kind of fascinated where they go with this. Next on the list, let's do a 180 or a 360 or whatever you want to call it. From defense to offense. Trey Johnson. This guy, from what I've heard, think like Cam Thomas from Brooklyn. Like just an absolute scorer. The Ringers quoted him as like the most talented, pure scorer in the class. So you hear that, and that obviously stands out. That obviously speaks for itself. And you're like, hey, that's awesome. But I've also heard people questioning his character in terms of whether it's like the selfish scoring mindset, which, I don't know, sometimes you just put in a weird college situation, and people are talking about his roster and the coaching of Texas, which I'm not going to comment on because I don't even know that much about, but you have to take into consideration those things, especially at a college level. I don't know if I love the idea of just like a scorer with questionable attitude, mindset. I don't know if I love it. And when I think of it, I just think of Cam Thomas. And when I think of Utah, I'm like, do we need another Jordan Clarkson type? And I know this guy's taller. His frame looks more built out. He's probably got more potential in the fact that Jordan Clarkson came in as like just like an absolute spark plug. He still is, but he's kind of found his niche. as a scorer now, as like a veteran scorer, and he's smarter with it. He still has those moments of like me. Sometimes you need that as a scorer, and I feel like Trey Johnson did that. I was watching Trey Johnson highlights, and there was still a few times, and like, keep in mind, this is the highlight section. So obviously he's going to make the bucket. But even him, like, sort of forcing some shots, I was sort of a bit cringed by it, sort of a bit put off by it. So I don't know. Make of that what you will. But scoring is the name of the game. So maybe I'm overthinking that. He averaged 20 points per game as a freshman at Texas. That's good. That is very good. My impression, as I said, is he built from the Jordan Clarkson mold? Do we want someone like that? And kind of what else can he become besides from scoring? What else will he offer besides from scoring? That's what I want to find out. TBC on that one. Next in line, Derek Queen. Think DeMarcus Cousins. That's what came to me. A big body, a guy who's actually older than majority of these guys, like majority of freshmen. He's already 20. 20? Is that right? Yeah, he's already 20. But I've written my note here. Who cares? Who cares about the age? Because I'm guilty of judging people by the age, whether it's young. Actually, no, young, I'm kind of just like, that's awesome. There's so much potential. Let's ride with this guy in the draft. But it's the age thing. If you come in as a senior, I used to be like, nah, go for the younger guys with more potential. But who cares if he's an older freshman? He's putting up 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 1 block per game at Maryland last year. And as I said before, think of DeMarcus Cousins. He's just like super crafty, can operate on the low block, can score. He's just like a smooth, offensively minded big, from what I understand. But can he become that kind of that hub? People love the term the hub, and I do as well. Kind of like a big man hub, the Jokic, the DeMarcus Sabonis. Who else? They're the main two ones that I think of, but a guy that you can sort of pass at the top of the key and they can play make from there. Can he become someone like that? I'm not sure, but to me, my impression of Derek Queen is absolutely like awesome down low on the block, but I don't think he can shoot at all. I looked at this and he shot 20% from 3 on 1 attempt a game. So clearly he doesn't take many, but he can take them. There was a game he took like 2 or 4, made 2 or 4. Okay, he can take them. He can make some of them, but put it this way: if he's even like one of the best back to basket bigs, crafty veterans, like if that's his game, he can just flat out score. But how impactful can he be defensively? How impactful can he be even offensively? Like if you can shut him down in the post and he can't shoot. I don't know. Very curious what he can become. But there was some quote. I wish I found this quote and I should have found it properly. But his coach said something like, might not have been his coach, but someone else said something about Derek Queen. It was along the lines of, if he was European, would be talking about him as one of the best bigs in the game. So something about his skill, something about his like intelligence. If he was European, maybe playing over there that we've not seen close and personal, people would be like, hey, this guy's awesome. Look at his skill level. So I found that fascinating. And I think that's a great point to leave it on Derek Queen. Next one. One of my favorites, for good and bad. Let me tell you why. Yegor Demon, BYU. Now, people, to paint a picture of this guy, think like a 6'9" point guard, Josh Giddey type, elite passing, maybe not much else. That sounds like not a great resume. But I remember people talking up this guy like in a really high level way, like top 5 pick type level. Early college season, and a lot was to do because of his size and his passing ability. And I'm a sucker for that type of player. I'm a sucker for quirky kind of tall point guards, largely known for their playmaking, largely known for like their intelligence, their IQ. But then the jump shots are questioned, the defense is half there. And that's pretty much what Yegor Demon seems like to me. But there's something interesting about this guy. I don't know. I was watching film of him before and I was just like, the numbers aren't pretty. He averaged 10 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Like, that's not great. His passing is next level, like in terms of his vision. I love that about him. But then you always have to go to the shooting. That seems to be like the tell for a lot of these players on how good they can become. Guess what his percentage is from 3? He took 5 a game. Cool. I actually like that. I actually like the fact that he takes them and he's not one of those players that he just won't shoot. You would much prefer him to take 5 a game, so I love that. But he only shot 27% from 3, which is ugly. Not good. But in saying that, go watch his NCAA tournament highlights, because that was one of the videos that popped up when I was doing some quick research before this. And there was a lot of 3-point highlights in there. So I'm willing to say he did not shoot 27% from 3 in the NCAA tournament. And that was just the regular season for BYU. Also, let me just say this. I have a bad thing where I fall in love, quote unquote, with these prospects like this. Lonzo Ball type. There was some other types that came to my head before, but Lonzo Ball's the main one. I really liked his sort of archetype, whatever that word is, and what he presented to be as a basketball player. There was something cool about it. But the thing about Lonzo, everyone talked about his shot. It was just like hideous looking back on it now. Really quirk to it. But Yael Demon's shot looks pretty good. The form. Like the percentage might be bad, but the form looks good, which makes me positive, which is like, hey, if you can look the part, take the part in terms of 5 threes a game, maybe there's something to work with here. But I see why people probably cooled off with him, because the other part of it is his scoring. I just don't know what he can do at the next level scoring-wise. He can get to the rim in terms of his long. He's not the quickest. He's pretty crafty. Uses his left hand a lot. Things like that. But besides from that, I'm just not sure how he can score. And it sounds like that's what everyone's kind of questioning. Cool, he can pass the hell out of it. But if you can't shoot that well, you can't create that well, how are you going to develop at the next level? Some quotes. The most talented all-round passer in the draft. Love it. That's kind of reels me in. I'm like, I'm halfway sold. Just because I think that's a really good attribute to have. Obviously, as a tall point guard, you probably want that. Next one, not so good. I wouldn't ever bet on him being a plus defender. I'm suddenly not that warm on him, but there's still something about him that I really like. I don't know what it is. Again, maybe I'm falling into the mold of just, hey, quirky point guard. I want that. Like, that's a quirky tall point guard that doesn't know how to shoot yet. Give me on that team. Put him on my team. There might be something like that. I don't know. My impression, what are we betting on? I wrote here, like, even if you're the one of the best passers we've seen, even if you are, but if you're next in line, you can't score, like, you'll struggle to score, you'll have your moments, but you still struggle. You're an average defender only. Going back to that quote saying, I would never bet on him being a plus defender. What are we betting on? Like, what? How can we convince ourselves fully of this guy if that's what he is? I find that very interesting, that defender point. Because if people were talking about his defense as like a plus level thing and like something to get excited by, I reckon he'd almost be my favorite prospect. I don't know, there's just something quirky about him, but the fact that even defensively people don't really trust him, I'm kind of off it. I'm not gonna lie. All right, how many names have we been through? A few, but I got one more. By the way, I was going to touch on this on the end, but these are the main guys I'm seeing in the top, in the 5th pick discussion around that area. There's a few more. There's also a few more I'm not 100% sure of, even though there was a few guys like that in terms of in this list, in terms of not 100% familiar with the games, but that kind of makes it more enjoyable for me, at least. Bit of research. But these are just the guys that have been around the 5th mark, 5th pick mark the most. Next one, last one, Jeremiah Fears. I saw a tweet about this, and I think this was specifically targeted about Utah. It's like Utah tanked the whole season just to get Jeremiah Fears or Trey Johnson. Make of that what you will. Jeremiah Fears. Limited knowledge of this dude. Probably the most lack of knowledge out of the guys on this list. But from what I do know, from what my research tells me, athletic, young, skinny point guard who can flat out attack the basket. There's a good quote coming in later that the Ringer put in. Flat out attack the basket. Got charged with a lot of the ball handling and like majority of the what's the word? The usage rate. There's another quote about his usage rate here, but pretty much was just in charge of the Oklahoma offense. And with that came 3.4 turnovers a game. But also with that came 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. So if you look at that on paper as like a point guard freshman in a big team, big college, you're like, that's great. But I think the concern with him, once again, it's his I think it's his frame. He's a pretty skinny kind of guy, and it's the shot. But I think the fact that he relentlessly attacks the paint and there's no question about his ability to get to the paint sounds like a great thing. And I think that's his selling point. It's his potential. He's one of the youngest in the draft. Again, we talk about the age, but this is more on the positive side rather than Derek Queen, who's one of the oldest. Let me read some quotes. because this helps me as well. Because as I said, wasn't too familiar with your game, Jeremiah. Quote, if you factor in both ball and body control, there might not be another prospect with a better first step and handle in the class. Awesome, cool. That sounds good. Strong. He gets into the paint with ease and draws fouls at an excellent rate for a player his size, even better than Ja Morant or Damian Lillard in their final college seasons. But he's not a particularly nuanced finisher once he gets to the rim, hampered by a lack of strength and unremarkable, be rude, vertical explosiveness. That's pretty neat though. They're saying he gets to the line at a better rate than a final college season Damian Lillard and Ja Morant. Ja Morant, I think he was a sophomore. Maybe Damian Lillard, maybe a senior. So the fact that he's, I know the game is advanced and whatnot and all that stuff, but the fact that he's doing that for these star talents, like more than the star talents back in those times, and they were at more advanced, older age, says great things. But my impression is sort of just like a bit like Trey Johnson in the fact that you're kind of like a young scorer whose potential is a bit... You've got a lot of potential, but it's almost like I don't know about the character side of Jeremiah Fears. I would like to dive into I would like to dive into that more because that's telling, and I think Trey Johnson, people kind of question that about him. But I don't know about Fears. Not sure about the personality side of things, which is always interesting. But yeah, I don't know. This guy's very intriguing. He can clearly score. Jump shot is a bit of a work in progress, but my mind goes to like, does Utah need another scoring guard like that? I don't really know if he fits. We've got Keontae George, Isaiah Collier, Jordan Clarkson. We've got guards that score. Isaiah Collier isn't really... He actually came on pretty strong towards the end of last season as a scorer, even though he broke the assist records for rookies as in Jazz franchise history. So clearly more of a playmaker than scorer. I don't know why my voice is suddenly like I'm yelling at the microphone, but they're my lists. I wanted to round this thing up. Few questions. Who out of them is most likely to become a star, and who do I want most? And who do I see us grabbing? Actually, who do I see Utah actually picking most? Most likely to become a star. I've written here VJ Edgecombe, but I also don't think he's going to be there at number 5. So I'm skipping that. I'm not allowing that as my answer. Trey Johnson is my answer. And I think even though I question what he can do besides from scoring, it's a league full of scoring. You need to be able to score the rock. And if he can do that really comfortably, I think his frame looks good in terms of he's not that skinny nature of someone like Jeremiah Fears. He's got that in the bag. Yes, he might have some questions about his shot selection, personality, whatever. But who knows what his college situation was like. Maybe the team wasn't good. Maybe his headspace wasn't good at that campus. I don't know. There's probably things to do with all those things. And if he can put that all together in terms of not just the scoring, he looked like he was half capable of playing some defense. Even when you find the right YouTube videos, they put defensive clips on him and just to showcase what they can do. Maybe he can put them all together. Maybe he can find some playmaking traits. Maybe he can become a star. I'm not confident, and it took me a while to work out what my answer for that one would be. Who do I want most? Have a think. Con Knippel is my answer. One, it's sort of like the trust factor because I know him more than the rest of them. Like I watched him more and I was more of a fan than the rest of the guys on the list. So maybe that's a cop-out. I don't know. But I also think he's one player you can insert straight away and he'll make an impact because of his intelligence and because of his shooting. I think that's honestly the two main factors, intelligence and shooting, that makes me trust him. And he doesn't seem like a guy with any like issues off court. He just seems like a no-nonsense basketball player that really loves the game. That's honestly what I think about Con Knippel. Maybe I'm off. Maybe that's not the report on him. But from what I've seen, from what I've read, from what I've heard, seems like that's him. Who do I see Jazz actually selecting at the 5th pick? I can see Con Knippel. I can see them doing that. There was years back where they passed up on Devin Booker. If you recall. I recall. They chose Trey Lyles. Maybe they see my vision of comparing those two, Con Knippel and Devin Booker, and maybe they're like, hey, we're going to redeem ourselves and go for the shooter.